I am knitting a vintage capsule wardrobe, and we have finished a knit skirt, a knit vest, and this lovely red merino wool sweater, which means that we have just one item left to fully finish out the rest of this capsule. The last piece is a vintage knit jacket. I'm going to go between calling it a jacket and a cardigan. I should have just picked one term, but I'm sorry, I'll be between either a jacket or a cardigan. If you remember my unraveling a sweater to get luxury yarns video, then the yarn that I made in that video is what I'll be using to make this particular jacket. This is that yarn. This is all I have left because I'm actually doing this intro after I have finished knitting my jacket. While I have knit all of the rest of these pieces with my knitting machine, this one is actually going to be fully knit by hand. The reason for that is that I have what's called a standard gauge knitting machine, which works really well for vintage gauge knitting. The gauge is usually around 7.5 to 8 stitches an inch, but this jacket is meant to be knit at a much larger gauge, less than 5 to 4 stitches an inch according to the pattern, and my knitting machine just can't work with yarn that is that thick. So this will be the only hand knit item that I make, and for those of you who have been asking to see more hand knits, I hope that you enjoy this, and for those of you who have been enjoying my machine knits, rest assured this is not the last video I'll be making on machine knitting, so stay tuned. Let's get right into starting to knit on this jacket.
Alright, so I wanted to discuss some progress that I had made. This particular jacket or cardigan, I think they call it a little bit more of a jacket. So we are doing the back panel here, and it has us working with stitch decreases and also different needle sizes. I think it's a little hard to tell at the moment because the sides are curling in. It's interesting because in the illustration, the jacket does look quite boxy, but there is a concerted effort to have a little bit of a waist cinch happening in the back panel. So even though the jacket is overall boxy, I'm thinking it will gently pull in around the waist area. I'm now going to be continuing knitting up and then doing the armholes in the back. And one thing you might notice is that I'm not doing any of this garter stitch that's around the border of the jacket here. That is actually a separate border that comes later and will be added on later. And I also just wanted to show you how this yarn is knitting up. I am really liking it. It has this really interesting play of, is it a cool tone sweater or is it a warm tone sweater, just with the different colors of yarn that I applied together to make this work. And I like how that's turning out. And it's also very soft, but it has structure to it. A lot of times cashmere sweaters, especially commercially produced modern cashmere sweaters, are very flowy. They have like a beautiful drape to them, but it's not typical what you would see in a sturdier sweater. So I think applying quite a few of the cashmere together with the wool mix, I think has added this really nice hand to it that is a little bit more structured and will work quite well for the jacket. And it looks like I'm still doing quite well on the yarn quantities I have. Just to keep an eye on that, it is still looking like it'll work out well. I'm going to take this and I'm going to continue working on the back panel. I have been woefully neglectful in keeping you up to date on how I've been doing with the cardigan pattern or jacket. Honestly, it's because I have been working on it somewhat while I have been traveling, but I thought now would be the perfect time to update you so that we can be on the same page as I continue working. So here is the back panel. It is looking maybe a hair small. It might be nice in terms of like a fitted cardigan, but I think this is supposed to be kind of a boxy, loose jacket, so I'm a little worried. I might decide to block this rather aggressively. Back panel fully done. What I finished on my trip and travels is the front left panel. It does seem to me like it's kind of longer than the back by quite a bit if you look at that, but I'm hoping that if the seam on the shoulder sits a bit far back, that'll kind of take the extra length of the front okay. It's a pretty fun construction. So you have a rounded front on the corner right here. Functional pocket. I love functional pockets. I don't know if it's quite deep enough for my cell phone. I think in the future I might make sure that my pockets can fit my phone because that is what makes it really useful to me personally. And then all the way up to where the armhole is, and then you have like the neckline is slightly sloping in this direction. So I have started knitting the right side to match, and I'm now exactly at the point where I need to make the pocket like I did on the left. So I thought that we could sit down and chat through how this pocket is added, because the pocket flap and the pocket portion of the pocket, like the thing that you put your stuff in, is also knit. Also, I'm so sorry. My camera thinks that cute little elephant is a face. So it's been focusing on that this whole time. Hold on. Yes, there we go. Sorry if that was out of focus the whole time, but maybe you got a lovely view of the cute little crochet elephant in the background. And in terms of like how close are we to the finish? So the back is done, one front panel is done. I'm working on the other front panel, then we need to do 2 sleeves, as well as what's kind of interesting on this one is a garter stitch border. So it's not any kind of ribbing or anything. I'm going to be knitting a garter stitch strip of knitting that I'm then going to be sewing onto the entire border here, as well as the cuffs on the sleeves. So let's get going with the pocket for this front panel. I thought the best way for me to explain exactly how the pocket works on these panels is by showing you the one that I already finished. So you knit up to this point on your sweater. You knit on separate needles 2 pieces. The first is just a stockinette square that will become the pocket piece for your pocket, and then a garter stitch flap with a buttonhole in the middle. And when you come across the next row, what'll happen is you knit a few stitches, you cast off a few stitches, you knit a few stitches, and then you come back and you sandwich. So you hold this together with this and you knit across all of them. And so that basically casts everything back onto your work. So that leaves you with a pocket flap and an opening into this pocket pouch. I think I'm gonna go grab a separate pair of needles and I'll knit first this pocket square and then the flap. And then I'll come back and show you how this all comes together. And here we go. This is what the front piece looks like. So we have cast off the 19 stitches for the pocket flap. I have to remember the other thing is that the right side is mirrored from the left. They write out the full instructions for the left front piece and then they say knit it all but mirror it for the other side, which is, I wish they would have taken the time to write it out, but yeah, so the pocket flap isn't centered. It's slightly closer to the center, as you can see. We have the pocket pouch piece, and then we have the pocket flap piece here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to first knit 5 stitches. I am going to hold this in the back of my work and this in the front of my work, or I could also hold it this way, I guess, and knit from each one. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, so now I'm at the cast off portion. And now I'm going to work in the pocket back and flap again. And I'm doing my best here with my focus and everything and trying to hold. I'm now going to be knitting off of 4 needles at the same time, so this is a little difficult. Well, I will knit 1 off of each needle. 1 through the one on the pocket flap, through the one on the pocket pouch, and knit that through. And then do that 19 more times. This is definitely by far the most fiddly bit of all of this. Every once in a while you want to check on the stitches that are remaining on your needle back there. You don't want them slipping off. If you decide to knit something like this, your stitches are probably going to look different from mine. I wrap my knits and purls in opposite directions. So that is why my stitches lean slightly differently on my back versus my front needle. We made it to the last one. Okay, whew, that was not easy. So the pocket flaps are in place. We want to continue with the rest of my front piece. So I'll knit that off. I'm admittedly a little sweaty now. That's not incredibly easy to work on, but now it looks exactly like the other side where you have the pocket flap in front, the pouch at the back which needs to be sewn in place, and an opening to access that pocket. You might have noticed that this, as well as the one on the other pocket, is a little droopy, and we will be doing a row of single crochet on here to kind of pull it together as per the pattern instructions, so that you get a little bit more of a firmness in the opening, and then hopefully it won't be quite as droopy. Let us maybe take a break, and then I will come back to continuing to knit on this front panel. The front panels are done. They go pretty quick once you get to the armhole shaping because you're only left with less than 20 stitches at that point. So now I'm just doing the last bit, which are the sleeves. I like to knit my sleeves 2 at a time because I'm doing these on vintage needles. I have 2 sets of number 9 needles that I'm using, and the remaining yarn, I think it should be enough, although I might have to use some of this ball for this sleeve because it's looking like this one's it might be a little tight on this ball. Let's keep on knitting and working on the sleeves. And I think the most interesting bit of this sweater or cardigan, besides the pockets are pretty interesting, are the garter stitch cuffs and border. So that'll be another thing that we talk about a little bit when we get to it. Hello. A bit of an update on the sleeves that I've been knitting. The 2 at a time method, where you're kind of blocking the work a little bit better, is so nice because it allows me to get to more of a flow in my knitting before I switch over to the next sleeve. We have increased all that we need to increase because we're knitting from the cuffs up, although the cuff is separate. And now we're just knitting for the length of the sleeve. I've got to about 13 inches. And the original pattern calls for 16 inches of sleeve, and then the cuff adds another 1.5 inches at the end. So a total of 17.5-inch sleeves. However, I tend to just always have to make things longer. I'm semi-tall, I'm 5'9", so I have long arms, so I tend to always have to increase the length of things. Looking at the pattern picture, it looks like the jacket is meant for almost like a bracelet length. I personally find that length frustrating. It's like almost too short, but not 3/4 sleeves, but not really long. But I definitely don't want to make it long enough so that I have to cuff it or anything like that. So what I actually did, you can see it on this, is I put this on and I turned it back approximately where I thought that it would sit well on me. Probably 19.5 to 20 inches total. So it's just kind of be a little bit of a marathon of knitting to get to the length of sleeve that I want. And then we're going to do the shaping of the sleeve piece. This isn't going to be one where it goes dramatically in on the sides, like some of pattern pieces that I've done. It's a little bit more sloped for a slightly boxier sleeve, which I personally prefer. Yeah, that's the update. Nutella, anything else to add? Do you have anything else to add? Do you want to say anything? No, she doesn't have anything to add. I've sewn up the side seams, shoulder seams, sleeve seams, and I've set the sleeve into the armhole. I am liking the length. I'm like borderline about it, to be honest, but it is hitting where I had wanted it to hit. Unclear though if that's where it'll continue to hit once I set in the second sleeve and add the border. So that's what's left. Ready? Let's go over it. Setting in sleeve number 2, knitting and attaching the garter border all the way around, adding buttons, and then sewing all of this down and then weaving the ends. So close, yet that just sounded like a lot of work. So by the way, do you see how nicely it matches with my trousers? These are 1940s trousers, and if you watch the next video, you'll see me kind of make them. Kind of. It's a part of it. Anyway, unintentional, but that worked out really nice. Some more seaming, and then a lot of garter stitching to go.
2 hours later.
Sleeves are evil. They're 100% sleeveless. This is the sleeve I did first. This is the sleeve I'm nearly done on. Can you spot the difference? I'm sewing it on inside out and I was almost done and now I have to undo it all and I tied knots. I'm sad. I think that deserves a chocolate to make me feel better.
1 eternity later.
It took some time, but it's fixed. We've got 2 sleeves attached. And now I'm going to knit a garter strip that will go all the way around this edge. So I think the next time that we'll see each other is for the final reveal. I hope you enjoy.
Didn't show me knitting the garter stitch border to this cardigan because it ended up being a little bit of a last minute rush, as you'll see next week, but I still think that it turned out really well, if not slightly tight. I wish I would have sewn it on a little bit looser. Overall, this is a cardigan I have been reaching for quite frequently as I find it cute and it's perfect for these cooler nights. If you want to see me wearing the entire 7 days of this capsule wardrobe, then feel free to subscribe because that's exactly what we'll be doing next time. I'll see you then. Bye!